Good evening. It is Saturday night, November 7th. It is time to recap UFC Fight Night 182. The main event just concluded on ESPN Plus. So we will recap what should be next for the winners and the losers and possibly who is getting cut afterwards. We're going to start off with the main event. And this was a very entertaining main event between Glover Teixeira and Thiago Santos. Thiago definitely dominating with punches in the first stanza of the first round. Then Glover comes back and grapples him and gets the top position to finish round one. Round two, it was all Glover all the time. Glover almost gets the submission to end round two. Then in the third round, Thiago gets the knockdown just to unfortunately get put back in the bottom position, and Glover finally finishes off Thiago Santos, gets the submission, and now Glover Teixeira could be in line for the next title shot after Jan Blachowicz fights Israel Adesanya. This is interesting. 40 years old, 5-fight winning streak. Father time, Glover Teixeira has really turned back the clock in his last five fights. And I think nothing less than a title shot is what should be next for Glover Teixeira. The problem is the next fight, if Israel Adesanya does beat Jan Blachowicz in March of next year, then you could really see a situation where, unfortunately, Glover Teixeira could be put off to the side, especially if John Jones comes back for his belt at 205, going up against a potential champ with Israel Adesanya. That being said, it could also, but who knows? Last few fights we've seen Bones regressing, and now with Adesanya, now with Santos being dominated, now I'm starting to wonder. I'm starting to wonder at this point, it has how much of a regression has John Bones Jones gone through in the last few years. But I think we are going to see probably in March. It will be Adesanya against Jan Blachowicz, barring any injuries. But if there are any injuries, that's where you keep Glover Teixeira. Glover Teixeira should be an injury alternate at this point. But don't book his next fight. Should be a title shot. Hopefully it'll be sooner than later, but it will likely be against the win. It should be against the winner of Adesanya and Blachowicz. As for Thiago Santos, this was probably his worst loss at 205. He's lost two in a row at 205. I don't think he needs that much of a step down, but I do think the step down for him should be Alexander Rakic. But first, give Thiago Santos a bit of a break before booking him in another fight. It looked like he did not look like he was 100% healed. Next item of business, we've got the co-main event. Andrei Arlovsky beats Tanner Boser via unanimous decision. And give it to Arlovsky. He just does not go away. Another fighter turning back the clock at age 40. Arlovsky has won. He's won two in a row, but not against top competition either. Boser was probably on the periphery of the top 15. I guess though at this point Boser is not a top 15 fighter. but he's pretty much lost to the majority of fighters that are actually near the rankings. But he's still a serviceable gatekeeper to the youngsters. What should be next for Arlovsky? He's lost to Tybura. So right now ranked, right outside of the top 15 according to Tapology. I suppose you can give him to Juan Espino. See if Espino I think Juan Espino should be next for Andrei Arlovsky. Espino, and this is what Andrei Arlovsky is at this point of his career. He is pretty much a gatekeeper to the young fighters and nothing more. As for Tanner Boser now 3-2 in the UFC with losses to Arlovsky and Gagne. Boser shouldn't take too much of a step down in competition. But I think I'll do a little lazy matchmaking and give him a fighter that also lost tonight in Marcos Rogerio de Lima. In the third event, which was a pretty entertaining fight, Raoni Barcelos beats Khalid Taha via unanimous decision. Taha showed a lot of fight for a fighter who was down 30-27. Barcelos looks like a fighter who is ready for a fighter that is near the top 15. I normally don't like doing a winner versus loser pairing. I usually like to do the old Joe Silva loser versus loser and winner versus winner. But I think this pairing might actually make sense. I think this fighter is right outside the top 15. I would like to see Barcelos go up against Sean Sugar O'Malley. I think that would be a very entertaining fight. Could also be a good fight to get Sean O'Malley back on track too. Barcelos at this point has won. He's 5-0 in the UFC, and it's time for him to get a jump in competition. And as for Taha, I think actually he should be rewarded in a losing effort. Taha's record's not exactly great in the UFC, but I don't think he's going to get cut. But I do think this is one where he does maybe get rewarded, who didn't look too terribly bad in a losing effort, so I would certainly like to see Taha get maybe rewarded with a little bit of maybe a fighter coming off a loss that is ranked above him. Maybe Frankie Saenz could be the guy. Saenz is ranked above him and has 2 losses. Taha versus Saenz, to me, makes a lot of sense. In the fight before that, Giga Chikadze takes care of another cannon, Jamie Simmons. TKOs him in the first round. Chikadze is another fighter. I think it is time for him to get a step up in competition. See how he'll do against the big boys at this point. Ninja has won. Yes, he's won 5 fights in a row, 7 fights in a row. I think the jump up in competition for next should be the winner of Damon Jackson and the winner of Ilia Tupuria and Damon Jackson should be next for Giga Chikadze. Simmons gave him a debutante. In the first fight of the main card tonight, we had a very entertaining women's bout between Yan Xiaonan and Claudia Gadelha, with Yan being the victor here. Yan could be knocking on the door of a title shot after tonight's win. And I think the appropriate fight for her next should be Carla Esparza. Carla Esparza, surprisingly, on a bit of a run, too. Esparza. Yeah, Esparza's won 4 in a row. And I think at this point, Jan and Esparza would really be an awesome matchup here, which could determine the next title shot after Namajunas and Wiley Zhang for next dibs at a title shot. So Esparza versus Jan in a title eliminator. I think I'll go with that, and then with Claudia Gadelha, what should be next for her? Gadelha just seems like one of those fighters where she always tends to falter against top competition, and Gadelha just unfortunately yet again blows her chance at a title shot. Gadelha is starting to fall into that gatekeeper category at 115. I suppose you can give her the loser of Rodriguez and Heba, the loser of, Watterson and Hebus. No, surprisingly, she's not fought the Karate Hottie yet. So yeah, I will go with the loser of Watterson and Hebus is what should be next for Gadelha. And on to the prelim card. Trevin Giles knocks out Bavon Lewis in the third round via punches. Trevin Gillies 2 in a row after dropping 3 in a row. No, after dropping 2 in a row, excuse me. And maybe Gillies is ready for a step up in competition. As Bavon Lewis is now 1-3 in the UFC, 1-3 in the UFC, and could get a fighter that is near the cut line next. What should be next for Gillies? I think Tom Breezy would be a good matchup for Gillies. Tom Breezy, another guy that's coming off a W, middle of the pack, middleweight fighter. As for Bavon Lewis, any fighter that is near the cut line is what will work for me. Alexander Romanov beats Marcos Rogerio de Lima via technical submission. What should be next for Romanov? And Romanov 2-0 in the UFC, so he's poised to make a bit of a jump in competition next. I think Tom Aspinall is the guy that should be next for Alexander Romanov at this point. And as for Rogerio de Lima, his next fight should be going up against the loser of Felipe and Tafa is what should be next. Darren Elkins snaps a 4-fight losing streak by submitting Luis Eduardo Garagori. Elkins is one where Elkins should consider retirement after this fight. Elkins is not going to be fighting for too much longer. And I think it would be good for Elkins to just simply retire on top, retire a winner. I really have no interest in seeing Elkins fight anymore. As for Garagori, he is 1-2 in the UFC. His next fight should be against another fighter that is near the cut line. Max Griffin gets back in the win column tonight after snapping a 2-fight losing streak by beating Ramiz Barahimja. I probably butchered his name, sorry. Should be next for Max Griffin. I think Keenan's song is what should be next for Max Griffin. As for Ramiz, his next fight should be against a debutante. And the first fight of the night, Gustavo Lopez beats Anthony Burchak via submission. Gustavo now 1-1 in the UFC. The winner of DeFritas and Gravely is fine for me. And as for Burchak, since he was a short notice fighter, I think a debutante is what should be next for him. On to next week. Next week is UFC Fight Night. Islam Makhachev versus Rafael Dos Anjos. Dos Anjos moving back to 155. So we'll see if Dos Anjos has one more run left in him. This one's one where there's not a lot of big names. So this could be one where I could be making a lot of cuts depending on how some of these fights turn out. But everybody have a great night. Enjoy life, and I'm gonna get to bed. I've worked all day, so everybody have an awesome night. Good night, everybody.